everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today we are checking out the Vevor's 2500 watt 12 volt to 120 volt DC to AC pure sine wave inverter. Now it has a continuous 2500 watt capacity and 5000 watt surge peak output power. Now it measures in at a little over 14.7 inches in length for the main casing and about 15.8 inches on the bottom, including the bottom brackets, and about 16.5 inches, including the lug connectors. It is 7.25 inches in width, and it is about 3.25 inches in height. And it weighs in at about 9.92 pounds. On this side of the inverter, we have some air intake ventilation cutouts. We have 3 household AC outlets. We have the LED light indicator for fault and power. We have one QC 3.0 18 watt max USB-A output port. We have the on and off switch, and we have the 6P 6C connector port for the remote controller. Now the remote controller measures in at 2.75 inches by 3.75 inches for the front plate, and the rear of the remote controller housing juts out about 21.5 millimeters, and it measures in at 2.15 inches by 2.75 inches. And here is the connector port. So plug in the cable just like that, and plug in the other end of the cable into the port on the inverter. Now, just in case you want to place this inside the wall and make a hole this size and place the remote controller inside and the cable inside of the wall, there is a little clearance area, and I'll measure that for you right now. So the wall needs to be thinner than 7.8 millimeters. We also have a multifunctional LCD display screen on the inverter, and it displays the input voltage, the frequency, the output voltage, the battery level, power in watts, and the waveform, which I believe is just graphic display and not an actual oscilloscope, and also a smiley face working status. Now the other side has 2 DC 12 volt 0.26 amp cooling fans and has the 7.8 millimeter input battery lug terminals. Now these are meant for 8 millimeter lugs, and they do come with the protective covers. Now the input voltage is 9.5 volts to 15.5 volts. It has low voltage shutdown at 9.5 volts plus or minus 0.5 volts, and a low voltage alarm at 10.5 volts plus or minus 0.5 volts. So it will alert you before it shuts down. And it also has over voltage shutdown at 15.5 volts plus or minus 5 volts. Now it does come with a red and a black battery cable measuring in at 21 inches in length. It does not, however, specify the gauge, but compared to a 11 millimeter thick 2 AWG cables with the 10 millimeter diameter and 2.2 millimeter thick lugs, these seem to be less heavy gauge at 9 millimeters in thickness, with the lugs that are thinner at 1.5 millimeters in thickness with holes that are also 10 millimeters in diameter. So it will have some play. Now the aluminum alloy casing feels heavy duty and does not have any external heat dissipation other than some grooves on the sides and no visible external screws except for the end plates. So by removing the output side of the end plate, the bottom plate is able to slide out. And we can see that the whole circuit board is screwed on to the top shell. That is why there is no visible external screws. So we have two huge built-in aluminum heat sink, one on each side, and the exhaust fans are in direct line of them to keep the inverter cool, dragging air in from this side and expelling it to the other side when the temperature reaches 113 degrees in Fahrenheit or 45 degrees in Celsius. And it has an over temperature cutoff at 176 degrees or 80 degrees in Celsius if it gets that hot. Now the fan noise is said to be between 20 to 40 decibels. Now because heat rises, to facilitate the heat dissipation, the inverter should be either placed flat on a table when mounting, or if you're going to mount it on a wall, place it sideways like this and mount it. Now if you're going to mount it vertically, make sure that the exhaust fan side is facing up and not the opposite direction, like with the output side facing up. Now we are provided with 6 additional 40 amp fuses, and if and when the inverter stops working for some reason, you will need to open it up and check the fuses and replace them if needed. There are 3 of them over here and another 3 over there. Now the wire used for the AC outlets seems to be on the thin side and could have been heavier gauge. Other than that, everything looks to be well organized and nicely built. Now it does say it has short circuit protection and reverse polarity protection, but it does say here, do not reverse polarity. Damage due to reverse polarity is not covered by warranty. So yeah, make sure you don't reverse polarity. So it is FCC, CE, ROHS, and PSE certified. And it is said to be 88% efficient, which is pretty good. And the fit and finish is very nice. So here I have a 200 watt inverter in my van. There are 3 100 amp hour LiFePO4 batteries in parallel. Have a battery disconnect, a 200 amp fuse, and a Victron 100 volt 30 amp charge controller, and 60 amp breaker switches on either side of it. Also have a watt meter and 300 watts of solar on the roof. And it has been working fine. So it is at 11.79 volts and it is at 25% because I've got my coffee maker turned on and it uses up about 725 watts. My single burner electric stove uses up about 785 watts, and I got 2 of my Heat personal heaters, which uses up about 200 watts each. And it can still handle it, and it is a total of 1,910 watts. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my personal heater, which uses up 400 watts. So let's see what happens. Okay, it tripped and it is at fault. Let's see if it turns back on by itself. Yep, it turns on back by itself. And of course, this is not on. This turns off and this turns off because I got it on a remote control switch. But the coffee maker turned back on and the single burner turned back on. So let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and change out the Lee Sky inverter to the Vevor 2500 watt inverter. And let's see if it can handle all this on at the same time. Okay, so got it all hooked up. So here's the moment of truth. At the moment, it is using up 89 amps because I just have the single burner stove on. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the coffee maker. And that should start percolating pretty soon. There you go, it's starting to percolate. And it is using up 164 amps. And I'm using the remote controller that came with the 2500 watt inverter. It is at 11.3 volts. And look at that. It's down to the 2 bars on the bottom. So let's keep an eye on that. And let's go ahead and turn on the personal heaters. Okay, that one is on. And that one is on as well. Yep, it's getting pretty hot in here because of the stove as well. So look at that, it's at 11.1 volts and down to the last bar. It's drawing in 190 amps. Still looking good. Getting a little bit warm. So here's the moment of truth, guys. Can it handle the 400 watt space heater? Yep. Yep. And it handled its surge as well. So we got all of the appliances running. Oh, and look at that. It is at 10.5 volts. So it should start giving me a warning pretty soon. It says plus or minus 0.5 volts. It went up to a 10.6. So the alarm is not going to ring. And it is drawing 234 amps. Yep. So there you have it, guys. And the fan hasn't kicked in yet. Yep. And they are all running all at the same time. Still at 10.6 volts. So yeah, the Vevor 2500 watt inverter delivers. So I forgot to take the idle consumption earlier. So I just got it hooked up to a car battery. And it is using up 0.72 amps. So there you have it, guys. The Vevor's 2500 watt inverter as I have tested it out here today. All in all, it did perform. And the build quality is pretty good as well. So check it out. The link is down below. Currently, it is $179 US. So it is a lot cheaper than most 2500 watt pure sine wave inverters out there. So I thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you again next time.